Anytime you're shortcutting it, you're probably cheating some people. Players play. Tough players win.
Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Centered Podcast. For those of you joining us for the very first time, I am your host, Anthony Ianni. I'm a former Michigan State basketball player, as well as the first Division I college basketball player in NCAA history with autism. We cannot thank you guys so much. My producer, Will Gatson, and I, we can't thank you guys so much for the support you've given us for the last couple months. It's been so much fun bringing the Centered Podcast and the content that you all love. If you are joining us for the first time ever today, thank you for joining us. And if you want to look and hear other episodes of the Center Podcast from our previous guests, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Odyssey.com. And if you'd like to see the video edition of our interviews, and especially today's interview with Dr. Damon Arnold, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is the Centered Podcast. And I already brought up Dr. Damon Arnold's name, who is today's guest. And for those of you that do not know who Dr. Damon Arnold is, Dr. Arnold is one of my biggest mentors in life. You know, before I went to Michigan State, I attended Grand Valley State on a full ride scholarship for 2 years. And one of the reasons why I attended Grand Valley State, why I accepted the scholarship there, was for many reasons. One of those reasons was Dr. Arnold, because of his background, because of his story, and because of the support that he gives student athletes. For those of you that don't know Doc really well, he is Grand Valley State University's director of the Laker Academic Success Center, and he is also the academic coordinator for the football and basketball team, and he works with other men's and women's teams on campus as well. But just his story about how he grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, moved out to California, was kicked out of 2 different high schools, but eventually graduated from a continuation high school, went out to a community college in California, and he kept climbing that ladder. And then eventually he went on to earn his bachelor's degree and master's of arts in sociology while playing football at Chico State University. And he also ended up getting his master's of science in sports psychology at the University of Idaho. And then he also got his doctorate degree in education administration from Washington State University. But just how he got to that point, how he was able to be kicked out of 2 high schools and get to his doctorate degree is an incredible journey of itself. We talk about our relationship. I'm not going to get too much into it any longer because I want you guys, in my opinion, to hear one of the greatest up-and-coming motivational speakers. I shouldn't even say up-and-coming. You know, he's one of the greats right now. And he drops the gauntlet of wisdom on today's episode. So here is our interview with my friend, my mentor, and former academic coordinator at Grand Valley State University, Dr. Damon Arnold. So we're gonna have a lot of fun with it. So every time like I have every time I'm at a conference and somebody asks me what's the greatest advice you've ever been given by an educator, I always refer back to you, because I tell people all the time that one of the first things you said to me on the first day of classes was, quote, utilize your resources. Because if you utilize your resources that are offered to you or given to you and here at this institution, not only will you be successful and graduate 4 to 5 years, but utilizing all those resources in life beyond college is going to help you prepare yourself for the real world. And that's what I always tell people instantly whenever they ask me, what's the one thing you always remember from an educator? Like, you're the guy that I always bring that up. And I tell people that story all the time, man. And so your words to me go well beyond just that one time in that office that morning, man.
Definitely. It's and thank you for saying that. You know, and that's my big thing that I had to understand in my life was, you know, we all have an opportunity to seek out someone who knows something different than we know that can help us in our journey. Because a lot of times I think we get caught up thinking that we're supposed to know everything, and we're not going to know everything. But when we know what we know in our lane, we can help another person who doesn't know what we know. And so when we utilize resources, that's when we're able to go to different levels. And we all have something that we're supposed to provide this planet with. And so we miss out on opportunity to learn something new when we don't ask a question. And a lot of times that takes being courageous, right? Takes being courageous to say that you don't know something. And so I try to encourage, everyone I come in contact with is be courageous, because the thing that you know, I don't know. And so I would need you to help me with that. And maybe I can help you with something, but I won't know what you need help with until you are courageous enough to ask for help.
So do you feel like, and before we talk about, your days growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, in the years you've been academic coordinator at Grand Valley State, do you feel like that over the years you've seen your student athletes, whether it be football or basketball or even the different sports, do you feel like that from a generational standpoint, it's different now? I mean, you talk about being courageous and asking for help. Do you feel like that the more you've seen student athletes go by, do you feel like it's become different over the years by students asking for that help?
I don't think it's different. I think we just have to take different approaches. I think everyone's the same, whether I do these grind time messages every morning.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it doesn't matter if you're old or you're young, that courageousness, that boldness, we all have to be able to exhibit that and do that. And so what I think has changed is older people having to realize the importance of meeting the person where they are. Because I think we forget sometimes that we were that person who didn't feel comfortable asking for help. And so I think that's what happens sometimes is we forget to put ourselves in that young man, that young woman's shoes to say, you know what, maybe they're not asking for help because they don't know how, or maybe they've asked for help before and didn't receive the help that they need. So I don't know if I would say it's changing, because I think it's the same. I don't think there's anything new under the sun. I think what has to happen is we have to once again understand the importance of figuring out different ways to reach a person with what they need help with. So I put the ownership not only on that young man, that young woman, but on that adult to really just figure out a way to develop a relationship. Because for me, relationships are everything. And when I develop relationships with that young man, that young woman, that old man, I know that I have a person who will feel comfortable enough to have those conversations that they don't feel comfortable having with anyone else. But it all starts with the relationship.
For sure. So Cleveland, Ohio, talk about Cleveland growing up as a young kid.
It's funny. I always tell when I go speak, right? I always talk about how, grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and then moved to California. So almost as if my life didn't start until I got to California. But really growing up in Cleveland for me, grew up just my mom and I, but lived in my grandmother's house. So I grew up with a foundation that was built on respecting everyone, loving everyone. And it's funny, since you brought it up, my mother always tells this story about how when I was young, and this goes to what I do now, right? And why I'm so passionate about people. But my mother said that she would take me to school and, the teachers would say, well, he really didn't speak today. Like he really doesn't speak. And then one time they came to pick me up and my mother came to pick me up and I got in trouble. And so my mother said, what happened? And they said, oh my God, one of his little friends had gotten in trouble and he was about to go to the principal office and get in trouble. And I said, leave my effing friend alone. And my mother was like, oh my goodness. And they was like, but we've never heard him speak. And first word he says is leave my effing friend alone. And so me and my mother, we get home to my grandmother's house and my grandmother was a big cusser. Like that was my girl, big cusser. And so my mother had told me when I got in the house, because like I said, everybody hung at my grandmother's house. So my cousins, everybody was there. And my mother, had already scolded me and everything. So we get into the house and she said, come in the kitchen, boy. So I come in the kitchen and I'm like, dang, I'm about to really get in trouble. And so she said, come here, y'all, come here. And I tell them what you said in school today. I wouldn't say anything. No, tell them what you said in school today. And I wouldn't say anything. And she said, yo, this dude, my son told them they were gonna get it on his friend. And my son told them, leave my effing friend alone. And my grandmother was like, oh my God, where did he learn that language from? And everybody looked at my grandmother and said, really? Really? Where did he learn that? So, but I think about that story because it was then that I've always been a people person. And I've always been the type of person who championed other people, people who has not yet realized their voice or don't feel comfortable enough speaking. And so I try to be that person to speak on behalf of different people because I was that person. I was that person that got kicked out of 2 different high schools, that graduated from alternative schools. So for me, it was an opportunity. And it's always an opportunity to tell people, you know what, it's not how you start, it's how you finish that counts. So my days of growing up in Cleveland, you know, it was great. It was a nurturing home. It was a lot of cousins, a lot of parties, a lot of seeing my mother, my aunt, my uncle partying with their friends at night. So it was pretty cool.
So you mentioned you were kicked out of 2 different high schools, and I think when I was on my official visit to Grand Valley State in the fall of 2006, you were brought up that you were kicked out of 2 different high schools. What were the reasons? What went down, for you getting kicked out of 2 different high schools?
I wasn't a leader. I was a follower, and I really wanted people to like me. And so I used to get in all kind of fights, and I used to always, and I wasn't going to school. I would, my mother had worked in Los Angeles, and her drive was probably about 30, 40 minutes from the house. And so she always tells the story how I would get up in the morning time and iron my stuff. And we lived directly across the street from the school, like directly across. And I would go for one period and come back home. And so eventually, it was 2 weeks left to graduate, 2 weeks left to graduate. And my teacher had told me like a week before, if you leave this class early or you don't go to class, you're going to get kicked out. And my butt, my friends, I seen them not going to class, and I didn't go to class and got kicked out. And my mother had to come up to the school. And I remember, and this was part of the thing that really changed my life, Anthony, was I remember my mother calling me, because like I said, she worked like 30 minutes, 40 minutes from the house. And I remember her calling me and saying, I need you to come up to the school. And I had just got kicked out of school. So I wasn't trying to go to the school because I'm like, right. She said, come up to the school. And I'm thinking she at work. And I'm like, and she said, I'm at the school right now. And I was like, oh, shoot, like the gig is up. So I go to the school, and we're sitting in the counselor's office because we had these police officers at our school in LA. And this gentleman was telling my mother, and he wasn't even looking at her, and just telling her, no, he can't, he won't graduate. It was 2 weeks left. He won't graduate. And he cannot be on these premises anymore. He needs to go to this alternative school, which was down the street. And like I said, wasn't even looking at my mother. And my mother was pleading with this gentleman. And I'm watching my mother look at him. And he was like, nope, there's nothing we can do. And she was like, it's 2 weeks left. My baby has to graduate. There's no reason why. And he said, well, he has to leave. He has to leave. And my mother, we got home, and she just broke down and started crying and said, I remember her crying and going to a room saying, what are you going to do with your life now? And Anthony, when I tell you, that ripped a piece of me, because remember, growing up in Cleveland, my mother moved from Cleveland to California. She sent for me a year later. She didn't know anyone in California. All she knew is she wanted to have a better life and give me a better life. That's the only reason why she moved out there, because she felt like I wouldn't get the life that she wanted me to be able to live in Cleveland. And so it was at that point where I'm looking and I'm like, wow, it just hit me. My mother's in there crying her heart out. And just, I heard her praying, and I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know what he's going to do. He's not going to make anything of his life. And so, so that was the hard part, man, is making that. And so once I got kicked out, I go to this continuation school, and it was crazy because I remember my first day there, and I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything all day long. And remember, I always grew up in a loving household. My mother always taught me to be respectful, right? And so I guess it was something different about me But this teacher came to me at the end of the day and she said, listen, she said, we have so many people who come to this school and they can get a degree, they can get their diploma, but they never end up getting, a lot of them never end up getting their diploma. She said, I see something different in you, but you sat here the whole day and you didn't do anything. She said, here's a packet. How this works is whatever you do in this packet, we're going to grade it. And that's how you're going to earn your credits. Once you earn a certain amount of credits, you're going to get your diploma. You're going to get your high school diploma. She said, but if you do nothing, you won't get your diploma. I remember going home, Anthony, and I looked at this packet and I just started doing it, right? I started doing it. I get to school the next day. And like I said, I don't know, it was something about her, it was something about me, but I didn't want to let her down because she took time when I was about to leave and had this conversation with me. So I get back to school the next day and I said, hey, miss, I forget her name, but I gave it to her. And she said, oh, you got some work done. And she looked at the whole packet. She said, oh my goodness, you got the whole packet done. And I said, yes. And so she looked, it was all correct. She said, and she kept giving me packets and I would just get it done. So I was earning my high school credits. I ended up graduating. So everybody graduated in June, right? So I ended up getting my diploma in like late July. So I was able to go to the local community college as well. So it was then that I understood too, what I understand now is the traditional high school just never worked for me. Didn't work for me because it was too much time. It was too much time. The reason why I have so many books out, the reason why I love speaking and I'm doing all these different things, these training and leadership development is because that's how my mind goes. My mind has to be active. I didn't know that then what I know now that when she handed me that packet, it's go time. And so that's why I got kicked out and that's what ended up happening.
It's amazing to me how all it takes is just one act of emotion from a parent to really kind of set you straight. And I remember there, and you know my mom and dad. I mean, there were a couple times when I was in high school where if I wasn't on my A game when it came to academics, you know, my dad would just look at me and say, you know, if you really expect basketball to carry you for the rest of your life, like you're wrong. Like if you want to go somewhere in your life, like your high school degree is going to be that first step to get you there.
Yeah.
And I was just always amazed how, like, I didn't know it at the time, and maybe kind of the same with you, but I didn't realize how important my parents' support was for me, probably until I had those wake up call moments from my mom or my dad that kind of made me want to strive for even more after that, because, you know, that's what they do. That's what parents do. They're supposed to kind of give you a little kick in the butt to kind of keep you motivated and keep you going sometimes.
You know what's funny, and this just, you reminded me when you mentioned mom and dad, right? Mm-hmm. And then I think about what you said earlier about your visit. And I remember mom telling me, you know, you had autism, and I remember, now that you say it, I do remember having a conversation saying, utilize your resources. Utilize your resources. Here's why I say that, Anthony, is because there's people who make it hard for me to do my job at Grand Valley. Sure, the people who make it hard for me to do my job and understand are Brandon Carr, Matthew Judon, Dan Scooter, Tim Lolito, all of these guys who went on to play in the NFL and have great careers. They make it hard for me to do my job because I got so many young men who think they're about to go to the NFL, which I don't try to down any dream. I tell them, I want you to I want you to experience your dream. But those dudes who I just mentioned, they did something special. Like you can watch Judon's Instagram and you can see he's working hard. Like he's always working hard. LeBron, if you watch LeBron's Instagram, you see LeBron putting in work. And so Kobe, people say, oh, I'm like, but Kobe would go to sleep. He would go work out, go to sleep in the car. Phil Jackson would come wake him up. They would go get something to eat. Then they'd go to practice. So they do something different that made them successful and have the success that they have. So you, just like you just said, I remember telling you, utilize the resources. So you make it hard for a lot of young men that come in my office and young women, because I'm like, you can't pass your classes. I remember it was a young man who had autism, but he utilized every resource. He didn't make excuses. He just utilized the resources and did the things that he wasn't good and got around different people. So you can't tell me there's an excuse. And then he leaves us and transfers to Michigan State and graduates. So you kind of tell me that you haven't, no, you're using that excuse because it sounds good to you and it's comfortable because you've used it before, instead of saying, you know what, I got to leave this comfort zone. So just like my NFL players, you have made it hard for me to be able to look at a young man, young woman in my office, and if they're not doing well, like, really? Really? So thank you for joining that crew of NFL players and all that. So yeah, you didn't know where I was going with that story, but now you get it. So go ahead.
Oh man, I feel honored now. I definitely feel.
There you go.
So you get your high school degree, Doc, and then you go to Citrus Community College in California, and kept climbing the ladder. So now I want to talk about like your football career at Chico State University.
Hold on, let me hold on. You said football career. Let me do some. All right, go ahead. Sorry, I digress. Go ahead, my fault. You know, you say football. You know, I still think I got it, Anthony. Still think I got it, man.
You could definitely run through a brick wall, man, for anybody these days, still, right?
There you go. There you give me some eligibility. You know.
So when did football kind of come into play for you?
You know, football has always been there. Like growing up in Cleveland, you know, I never played organized ball. And that was one of the first things I remember. So moved to California. I had a friend, because we were in these apartments, and I had a friend who was playing football. And I asked my mom, I said, hey, Mom, can I go with him? He's going to football practice. And she was like, yeah, okay. So I go with him and his mom to practice. Might have been his dad, but I go to practice. And I remember this coach, and I remember his name, Mr. Black, Coach Black. And the irony, he was a white guy, but Coach Black had came up to me afterwards, and he said, hey, young man, why aren't you playing football? And I said, I just moved out here from Cleveland, and I don't know. He said, would you like to play? I said, yeah, I would have to ask my mom. He said, well, have your mom give me a call. And I remember going home and I was like, Mom, the coach came up to me and the coach asked me if I wanted to play. And she asked me, she said, do you want to play? And I said, yeah, I would love to play. But here's the thing. My mother didn't have any money for me to sign up and play. So I remember her having a conversation with the coach, and the coach said, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. We want to make sure this young man gets involved in something. And so I remember getting there, and Coach Black, his son, had quit. I don't know what the reason was, but Coach Black said, hey, this was my son's jersey. We're giving it to you. I want you to be a great young man, but I want you to be a great football player. I remember destroying that league, right? I remember destroying it, seriously. And it was crazy because I think about that, and I think about how my mother sacrificed, because they let her pay like a couple dollars or whatnot because she couldn't pay the whole thing. And it was a sacrifice that my mother made. So once again, it's all these different things that I keep saying, the sacrifice. And so football was there. And then I go on, and high school, remember, I wasn't going to classes and all that. Right. So I played my freshman year. And then after my freshman year, because of grades, I didn't play anymore. And I wanted to hang out and all this type of stuff, and went astray and did my own thing with a couple of guys who I was going to say should have been hanging with, but yes, I should have, because it helped me become the man I am today because of those experiences that I went through. But I remember, true story, I remember after I graduated, and I was dating this girl, and I was making some money illegally, and I just bought this car, and I spent a lot of the money I made on this car, and it was a real flashy car. And the car had got stolen. And I remember I was going to get my mother, because I had this other car, and my mother got tired of me just getting in trouble. She was worried about me because I was out in the streets and doing all this stuff. And she had went to Cleveland. She had went to Cleveland to stay in Cleveland for a little while. And I called my mother. I said, Ma, you know, I just bought me a new car. I'm going to give you my old car because you don't have no car. And she was like, I don't want your car. And I was like, Ma, what you talking about? You know, she said, baby, I know how you got that car. And I'm not coming back out to California until you. And so the car got stolen. And I remember I was hurt because I spent a lot of the money I had made on this car. And I remember praying. I remember praying and I said, God, you know, I've always played football, and if you could help me get back into school, you know, I'll change. True story. And I remember calling this school, Citrus Community College, because I went to Mount Sac for a semester and ended up not going to Mount Sac anymore. But I called Citrus, and here's the irony of how this whole universe works. I get on the phone and hey, I just want to find out, you know, I know the football season's starting, and I want to see if I can walk on to the team. And he said, oh yeah, what's your name? And I said, Damon Arnold. He said, okay, what high school did you go to? I said, well, I went to Nogales, but I graduated. He said, wait, Damon Arnold from Nogales High School. And I said, yes. He said, this is Coach Romano. Coach Romano was my freshman coach. And remember, I played freshman until I got in trouble.
Right.
He said, and freshman, beasting, he hated kicking me off the team, but I wasn't going to classes. And he said, Damon, where have you been? And I said, man, he said, never mind. He said, I had to give him my social security number, gave him that. He ran my stuff because I told him I went to Mount Sac for a semester and then told him I had gotten in trouble. And so he called me back. He said, Damon, he said, you said you went to Mount Sac. He said, what happened? Because I don't see your clock didn't start. And I said, well, you know, I wasn't going to class. He said, oh, same old Damon, huh? He said, but actually what happened was because you weren't full time, your clock never started ticking. So if you come here, this will be like your first year playing. And so he said, why don't you come and let's work you out and let's see. So I get there, Anthony, I'm out of shape. I'm like 40 pounds over what I used to weigh when I played. And he said, you know, I can still catch. So I'm still catching. But he's like, I can see you still got hands, but I can see you. And so my first year didn't do too well. Then my second year, that's where I was able to go to get a scholarship, go to Chico State. So I ended up going to Chico State to play football. And so that was life-changing as well, because that's where I met my wife at, right? That's where I met my wife. That's where education really started becoming important to me, because I started understanding that I can do this. I just thought because I wasn't good at math, because I wasn't good at science, that I wouldn't be a good student. It wasn't that I wasn't a good student. I wasn't asking for the help. So once again, when I'm talking to my guys, my young ladies, it's because I had to go through this. So I asked for help with those things, got a tutor with those things, and my tutor helped me with those things. And I performed well in those other classes, right? And so football career ended at Chico State. I went on and was able to get into the master's program. And so, yeah.
So you get your bachelor's degree. So when did it finally kind of hit you that, hey, I got my bachelor's, now I'm going to go get my master's. And if I get my master's, you know, maybe I should go get my doctorate degree and get my PhD. Like, when did all that kind of like start to hit you?
You make it sound so like, remember, my life has never, notice how I keep going back telling a story that is connected to it, right? So I'm about to get my bachelor's degree, which was crazy because so I got into the university. My grade still wasn't the greatest, but because of football, and I was through this program called EOP, which was like a trio program. So part of the trio program, I had to go meet with a counselor in the trio program every like couple weeks. His name was Mike Takumo. Mike Takumo was an Asian guy. So a lot of people always ask me, because I get along with everyone, right? And remember I told you the one lady who helped me, she was a white lady. Remember I told you Coach Black was a white guy. Mike Takumo, Asian guy, but if you talk to him, you'll swear he Black, because he just the coolest talking person in the world. So I had to meet with him every couple of weeks. And I remember our last meeting, I'm about to graduate, and he said, Damon, he said, so you're about to graduate. Did you ever think you would? I said, no, I didn't think I was gonna graduate. He said, you know, Damon, I knew, and we laughed because we knew you started changing. Because one day we were watching you go across the yard, campus, and you had a belt on. We said, oh, shoot, David got a belt on. So I started wearing the belt. He said, that's when he knew things had changed. But he said, so what are you going to do after you graduate? And I said, true story. I said, what do you mean what I'm going to do? I said, Mike, I'm about to get a degree. I'm about to go on and make $100,000, $200,000 a year. He said, Damon, I don't even make $100,000 a year. I was like, wait a minute, what the heck is going on here? Because I thought you go to school, you get a degree, you make $100,000 a year. I don't know why that number was in my head, but that's what I thought. And he said, Damon, have you ever thought about going to grad school? I must have looked at Mike Takumo like, dude, I've been meeting with you for the last 3 years. You know my grades ain't good enough, because I thought grad school was for real smart people, people who talk like, yes, the circumference of the earth. I really did. And he said, Damon, I think now, because you understand the importance of education, you should go talk to someone. And I think you should really think about grad school. So I leave his office. What he just said went in one ear, out the next, because I thought grad school was for real smart people. I see my friend, true story, can't make this up, guy named Paxton Griffin. Soon as Mike has that conversation with me, I'm walking on the yard, about to go home, and Paxton Griffin says, Paxton says, Damon, what's up? And I'm looking at Paxton, and Paxton's smiling from ear to ear. I'm like, Pax, what's going on? I'm thinking Pax been smoking weed or something. And I hope you don't get in trouble with my podcast, with my language and whatnot. But I'm just being transparent, right?
PG-13 show, Doc. You're good.
Okay, all right. But that's what I thought. I thought he was, and he said, Damon, Damon, I'm going to grad school. And I looked at Paxton like he was crazy, because I had taken Paxton. Me and Paxton had classes together. Paxton wasn't that smart. Paxton can't go to grad school because grad school is for people who talk like, yes, the circumference of the earth. And so Paxton said, listen, I just got finished talking to a guy named Dr. Scott. He said, Damon, you should go talk to Dr. Scott, because he's allowing me into grad school conditionally. And so I go over, I run over there, talk to Dr. Scott. I go in, Dr. Scott said, oh, how you doing? I said, how you doing? I said, my name is Damon. Paxton had told me that something about it. He said, oh yeah, I remember you played football. You're quite the football player. Yeah, I had to throw that in there on your podcast. He said, well, I'm starting this program. He said it's made up of psychology and sociology classes. But the reason why I'm starting this program, because I want to make an opportunity for people like yourself, if you choose to go in the program, in Paxton, the inner city, because he wanted to really just get young men, young women from the inner city to come to college, to understand that education is important. So he was creating this program. He said, well, if you're willing to do it, I'll let you in conditionally. Your first semester, you have to maintain a B average. And after that, you'll be in unconditionally. And I was like, all right. So I leave his office. I see my other friend named Ron Brown. We called him Buki. And so I see Buki like, D, what's up, man? I said, man, I'm going to grad school. Buki looked at me like I was crazy, because Buki thought grad school was for real smart people, people who said the circumference of the earth. I say, listen, go talk to Dr. Scott. He goes to talk to Dr. Scott. We all three in, Anthony. We're in grad school, but remember, we're in conditionally. When I tell you, one of the things I talk about now, because connecting the dots backwards, I talk about the importance of who you're hanging around. We're pushing each other, because remember, we had to maintain a B average. So Paxton would call me in the morning time, because our classes weren't until like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Paxton would say, hey, D, did you get that reading done for class? Nah, man, I didn't get it done. He said, look, I got an extra book from the library. Why don't you come over? Let's get some breakfast. Let's get this reading done. And that's what we would do. I would call Pax. Hey, man, you get that stuff done we supposed to eat? Nah, man, I didn't get it done. Hey, man, come over to the house, man. Let's cook something to eat. Let's get this stuff done. So we was sitting up, all three of us, reading, eating, talking, but we was getting it done. So I'm about to graduate. I hadn't told my mother that I was going to grad school. So I ended up telling my mother at the graduation ceremony, because I had a chance to get up to thank different people that played a significant role in my life. And I'm sitting up, I'm crying on stage, because we only get 2 minutes. And I'm crying because I'm looking at my mother, and I'm crying because my mother has sacrificed so much. And everybody, while I'm crying, because we're in this big old church, right? And everybody like, it's okay, baby. It's okay. It's okay. And I stopped crying, and I said, but something my mother doesn't know is I'm going to grad school next semester. And everybody started clapping. Ah! And so when I'm going at the end of the ceremony, my mother comes up to me. My mother's like, you don't be lying in front of people. You ain't going to no grad school. I said, Ma, I said, I am. I said, Ma, I'm going to grad school. She said, really, baby? I said, yeah. I said, it's this guy named Dr. Scott. He's let me into grad school. She said, baby, I always knew you were going to do something special. So fast forward, we push ourselves. Me, Paxton, and Buki, Ron Brown, we push ourselves. We graduate. And so for me, it was never a thought of going to grad school. It was an opportunity that I had gotten, and I took advantage of the opportunity. So once again, when I go speak around the country, I be transparent as I can, because I need people to understand that it's not how you start, it's how you finish that counts. And if I can do it, they can do it. And just like I just said, take advantage of the opportunity. So I go on, I get my master's degree. And so that was my first master's.
Man, like I get goosebumps, man. Like when you first told me the story, your life story, geez, how many years ago? 14 years ago now, or 15 years ago this fall. Like I didn't really.
I'm only 25. Shoot, go ahead. Sorry.
Like I really didn't understand like the significance of it at the time. But then the older and older I got, and the more and more I started listening to you and just like looking up at your wall at all the different degrees you had and realizing the sacrifices that were made, and just hearing about it in more detail, like it makes me more like proud to know you, Doc. And I'm not just saying that because, you know, you're a good friend of mine and because you're on the podcast. Like, you know, I've always told people that you are one of my biggest mentors in life because of everything you have gone through and everything that you have done and what you have become and you're still achieving and striving for. And this is one of the biggest reasons why I wanted you on here, because I know that there are going to be folks that listen to this who have those struggles in college and high school and hear this and go, you know what? If Dr. Damon Arnold, who struggled in high school, got kicked out twice, you know, can achieve this, then why can't I? So you're kind of like the guy who is like that stepping stone, you know, and that inspiration for those who struggle, you know, at a younger age, especially in high school.
Definitely. And once again, connecting the dots. And you know, my big thing that I talk about now is never happening to you, it's happening for you.
Yes.
And I really understand the significance of that because, you know, I'm big on purpose. So that's my thing is purpose, right? I believe we all come to this planet with a purpose. And I also believe that when we take advantage of and understand that, once again, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you, and understand that, you know what can I learn from this? Because I can get mad at whatever situation that makes me uncomfortable or that didn't go the way I wanted it to go. But when I step back and instead of reacting, and I talk about, you know, when I was younger, I used to react. Now I respond. And how I respond is I take a step back and I say, wait a minute, I can't change what's happened. I can't change what's happening, but I can always change what happens.
Right.
So I can't change what happened, can't change what's happening, but I can change what happens next. And so I determine that. So I determine that when I respond differently and say, you know what, I can learn from this. And now I get it so much to where I'm becoming more and more aware that, oh, okay, this is another tool to go in my toolbox, because I have this toolbox full of tools where at one time I only had a hammer in my toolbox because I wasn't aware that I was going to come up to different situations that were different than nails, which that's what a hammer is used for. So if all I have is a hammer, all I'm going to use it for is hammering in a nail. But I understand I like a lot of different things. So I need a lot of different tools in my toolbox to handle those different things. And so every experience that happens to me, that's happening for me, I understand it is just another tool that I can take out of my toolbox to handle the situation that I'm going through.
And it's funny you bring up how, you know, you control what happens next. Like you can't control like what happened because that's in the past. And when you talk about, you know, you control what happens next, you also control in a way how you live your life. Because, you know, I like to tell people, you know, that if you have dreams and goals, there's only one person stopping you from achieving them. And it's not your friends, it's not your family, it's not teammates and coaches, it's yourself. And in the same way, you kind of had to hold yourself accountable for what you do in your life, because there are consequences and you will get punished because of your actions. And so, and I think it takes the younger generation, in my opinion, kind of a bit of a minute to think about that, because they're looking at the bigger picture and what they want to do in their life instead of thinking, okay, these are the consequences if I do this, or these are the consequences if I do that. And then if they do something that causes them to not achieve what they want to achieve in life, they immediately point the finger at somebody else. Like, oh, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. It's like, well, you were the one that stopped yourself like from going to where you want to go in life, and you put the blame on others.
Definitely. I think, and it's funny because part of my Power of Purpose program, I talk about that, and I talk about the importance of accepting responsibility. See, my wife is funny because the conversations that we have, she gets mad sometimes because I accept responsibility for everything, and I'm quick to, because here's the reality. So I got a new book, and it's funny because people think they're children's books, and when they read it, they're like, oh shoot, this isn't a children's book.
Mm-mm.
And so one of the books that I have, because I redid my old children's book and put a goal setting dream board kind of inside of it, and then these other two books that go with it. And so one of them is The Power to Unlock the Cage, and it talks about just that, how we allow ourselves to be locked in this cage where we always had the key, but we're waiting for someone else to unlock the cage. So we're waiting for someone else who maybe don't even know, or maybe don't even want to unlock the cage that we find ourselves in, instead of taking responsibility, saying, you know what, I have the key. And when I accept responsibility, I can control myself getting out of that. And so that's why I say my wife always, because I try to accept responsibility for everything and say, you know what, hey, my fault, it was me, my apology, because my pride isn't so to the point now where it's like, ooh, I got to be right. I don't have to be right. And many times I'm wrong, but I do know some things in life. I know I'm good at this. I know I'm good at developing relationships. That's my thing. But anything else, I'm still going to work. And I'm still working on this because you had asked me, I said it's important for us as adults to be able to reach that person where, so the reason why I study so much, the reason why I study success, the reason why I study successful people, because I know younger generation, older, they want to be successful. People want to be happy. But what I try to do is help them become more aware that happiness is not out there. Happiness is in here. I heard this story about this gentleman, this father who had just come home, and he was tired and he wanted to watch the game. And so he's trying to watch the game, and his young son kept coming in. He was like, gosh, I'm trying to watch. He said, listen, and he's seen this newspaper or this magazine, and in the magazine, he tore it out, and it had a picture of the world. And so he tore it in 100 pieces, and he told his son, all right, here you go. He said, when you come back with that finished, I'll turn off the game and we'll go play and we'll go get some ice cream. The son came back like 2 minutes later, and the father was like, wait, there's no way you could have got that finished. And the son handed it to him. Here you go, Dad. And the father looked, and the whole world was complete. He said, how did you do this so fast, son? He said, well, on Dad, on the back, there's a picture of a man. He said, what I did was I put the man together. And once I put the man together, the world came together. So once we understand that we put the man together, the woman together, once we understand happiness is inside us, then the world becomes complete.
I like that, Doc. I really like that.
Thank you.
Should have told me that 15 years ago, man.
I didn't know that then. It wasn't part of my toolbox. It's part of my toolbox now.
Hey, and you got a lot of different things, man, in that toolbox as far as like wisdom and everything. And so you get your master's of science in sports psychology at Idaho, and now you're on to your 500th degree, which is a degree in a doctorate in education administration from Washington State University. Go Cougs. So what made you choose Washington State?
So I had gotten a job. So after I received my master's degree, my first master's from Chico State, I was in a friend of mine's wedding. I was his best man. His uncle had came down. And so we're at the end of the wedding, we're talking or whatnot. He introduced me to his uncle, and he said, hey, so what are you doing? And I said, I just finished getting my degree. He said, oh, cool. He said, so what do you want to do? I said, I don't know. I've been looking for a job or whatnot. He said, He said, you know what? We have a position open at Washington State. You should apply for it. And I was like, cool. He said, so what was your bachelor's degree in? I said what it was in. I said, but I'm finishing my master's degree. And he kind of took a step back. He's like, wait, you're finishing your master's? I said, yeah. He said, I need you to definitely, on Monday, I need you to call this person. So at first he was just telling me about a job. Then once I said a master's degree, he said, wait a minute, I need you to call this person. And so I call this person. I go for the interview. When I tell you, when I went for the interview, Anthony, I told them, you know, I'm a reformed knucklehead. Like, education wasn't important to me. And now I understand how important education is. And I'm not the smartest person, but I can develop relationships. So if you're looking for someone like that, that's going to be able to reach these young men and young women, that's my strong suit. I ended up getting a position. So I get the position there, and I had, so I had gotten, so what was crazy, I applied for a position. The position I applied for was I was going to be a recruiter in admissions office. 2 weeks before taking the job, I get a call from Washington State, from the person, my boss, and he asked me, he said, hey, the person who was in the position that I eventually took had taken a different position. They said, would you want to have this other position? Which this was a counselor, so I didn't have to travel or anything. I was the African-American student counselor. So I was in inclusion and equity. And he said, I said, yeah, I would. He said, because you have your master's, you know, you're able to get this position. And I said, okay. He said, and also it comes with, I think, like $10,000. It was a $10,000 raise. So I hadn't even started yet, and I had earned an extra $10,000. Talk about the power of a bachelor's to a master's degree.
Right.
And so took the position there, loved my position. And then at University of Idaho, which was 7 miles up the road, we had a partnership where I could take classes there, and I wouldn't have to endure the costs because it was a partnership. So I think it was like $6 per class or something for faculty or the staff. And so they had a sports psychology program. So end up doing the sports psychology program, end up getting my degree in that, finished that. And then the PhD, what happened was I had a fraternity brother, and my fraternity brother was working on his PhD. And I was like, dog, how are you getting your PhD? Because I had meetings with him, fraternity meetings, and he wasn't that smart. And I thought people who got their PhD talk like, yes, the circumference of a. So he said, you know, he said, don't you got a master? He said, you got 2 master's degrees. And I said, yeah. He said, it's just like getting your master's. He said, now the hard part is going to be, you know, you got to write your dissertation, which not a great writer, not good at math, not good at science. He said, but you know, you can get an editor or whatnot and all this. And so I got into the PhD program and ended up getting me writing. So once I started writing, it was crazy because somebody had told me when I was at Chico State, a person had told me, once you start working on your PhD, this is what they said. And I was like, I'm not ever doing a PhD. Like, I don't even know why you're having this conversation with me. But they said, you need to start writing papers with stuff that you're interested in, because once you start working on your PhD, you're going to be an expert on this subject. Never thought anything of it. My PhD and my dissertation that I wrote was the African-American student athletes experience at a predominantly white institution. I had graduated from Chico State, which is a predominantly white institution. So I did an ethnography. So I interviewed student athletes at Washington State. It was the same things that I experienced. So some of the themes that came out of it. So I'm not going to say it was easy, but it wasn't as hard as I thought, because I was interested in the work that I was doing. I was interested in the articles. I was interested in becoming the expert on this particular thing within this field, because I experienced that. And I knew that it was a lot of other student athletes who were experiencing that at predominantly white institution, that sense of belonging. I knew that it was going to be important for institutions to create programming and making sure that students were getting connected outside of the siloed athletic program to get involved with different things. So I knew the importance of that. And from there, that's why I think I do my job so well, is because I don't keep my student athletes in the athletic department, because I would be doing them a disservice. I make sure that they're connected to other things, to other departments, because I say that thing to them where I say, your network dictates your net worth. And so if you want your net worth to be extended, I need you to extend your net worth.
So let's talk about what you do now. You are Grand Valley State University's director of GV's Laker Academic Success Center. You are also the academic coordinator for football and basketball, and beyond that as well, because like you say, you work with men, boys and girls, or men and women in sports. So was Tim Salgo the athletic director at the time when he hired? When you were hired? Okay.
Yes,
so,
yes.
What was that conversation like with him?
Tim is, when you talk about mentors, Tim is my guy, my guy. When I took the position here, so remember I was working at Washington State, had a great job, just finished my PhD, and but I knew I had this, I wanted to get back in athletics because writing my dissertation and doing the interviews and getting connected, because I had gotten cool with the athletic department. I was helping them develop a leadership program at Washington State. I was doing leadership things with them. I helped them develop a mentoring program at Washington State in their athletic department. So me and the athletic director got cool. And I had seen this job at Grand Valley, and I was trying to, do I want to go from D1 to D2? And I'm like, I'm at D1. Why would I? And my athletic director at Washington State said, he had known Tim. He said, there's something special about that school. So I come out here, I do the interview, Anthony. And my interviews have always been, and I told them, I said, I'm a reformed knucklehead who education hasn't been my thing, but I can develop relationships. If that's what you're looking for, I think I'll do a phenomenal job here, but it's going to be unorthodox the way I do my work. And Tim loved me. And so it was snowing real bad in Michigan. The snow was dirty, all of this. So I go back to Washington State, and it snows because I'm in the Palouse. So I'm in Pullman. It snows up there. Like Seattle gets a little bit of sno,
but not like the west side of the state of Michigan.
It's bad. So I was like, man, I don't really want to go up there. It was okay, but it was something about the conversation that Tim and I had. So fast forward Saturday. So I think I might have came up here. They flew me up here, let's say on a Wednesday. So on Saturday morning, I wake up and I'm watching TV. True story. Watching TV. Grand Valley State Lakers, ESPN, Grand Valley State Lakers against North Dakota State. Division II championship game up next. Like, wait, huh? And so I'm watching, and I'm like, oh shoot, this the school. Dang, they playing on TV. So I call my guys up. Hey man, remember that school I interviewed at? They playing on TV, man. Like, they was like, really? They turned to ESPN. They was like, oh man, that's pretty cool. Why they got Popeye on their helmet? Because remember we had Louis the Laker at the time.
You look like
Popeye. So they're trying to clown me. I go in there, I wake up my wife. I was like, baby, come look at this. She was like, you said they don't play on TV because it's Division II. I was like, I don't know. They don't. So we watched the game or whatnot, and Grand Valley wins. And I said, I don't know if this is a sign or what. But I said, babe, what do you? She said, babe, if you like it, I didn't moved out from California to freaking Palouse, Pullman, Washington, and my wife, she California to the heart. And so she was, when she first moved to Pullman, Washington, she was like, oh my God, I can't wait. We're going to have the first white Christmas. It's going to be so, remember, I grew up in Cleveland, so I know freaking snow. And she was like, oh my God, it's going to be so great. And I was like, yeah, okay. So it snowed, and she was like, oh my God, she out playing in the snow. Oh my God. And then that night it was a snowstorm. So then the next day she goes out, plays in the snow. That third day she was like, is it going to go away? I'm like, no, this is pretty much it. So anyway, she said, I followed you out here. I follow you wherever. So I was like, all right. So I called Tim Salgo, and I said, hey, just want to let you know, I want to accept the position at Grand Valley. He said, hey, that's good to hear. This is what he said. He said, right now, I'm with the football team. We just won a national championship, which I didn't think he would be there, answering the phone or whatnot. Right. He said, but before you accept the job, I'm gonna give you a number to Sandra Jennings, his assistant. Give you a number to Sandra. I need you to call her before you accept. I want to fly you and your wife out here because I need your wife to be okay. So my son was 1 year old at the time. So she calls, I said, babe, he wants you to call his assistant they're going to fly us out there because he wants to make sure you're going to be okay. She was like, really? I said, yeah. So they flew us out there. And when I tell you, remember I came out there, snow was all dirty, sun was shining. It's in wintertime in Michigan, but sun is shining. I mean, it just looks so phenomenal out there. She's like, I thought you said it was. I was like, babe, I don't know. I don't know what's going on in my life right now. And so we ended up taking a position, man. And so Tim not only taught me that, but one of the main things that I've always said whenever I go travel, Tim told me this. He said, because I started studying successful people. And I don't think I started, but I started really understanding what I was doing, that I was hanging around people who stretched me, people who knew more than I did, and I started becoming more comfortable with it. Because, you know, it was a time where it was like, I didn't want people to, you know, I'm not good at math. I didn't want people to know that I wasn't the smartest dude in the room. Then I was like, I don't care. I don't have to be the smartest dude. So Tim, we would have meetings, and Tim had told me this early in my career. Tim said, you know, my wife and my daughters, you know, they're night owls. And so he said, so in the morning time, I get up early in the morning, and that's when I'm able to get my meditation in, get my prayer in, and really get my reading in. I said, so what time do you wake up? He said, I usually wake up about 5:30 in the morning. I was like, sheesh, 5:30, like, oh, good. Ugh. But then I said, man, Tim Selgo is one of arguably the best Division II athletic directors ever.
Thanks.
I said, wow, he gets up early. And then I started studying people, and people got up early. Successful people got up early. And I said, all right, I'm about to start getting up early. And so Tim got up at 5:30. I said, well, I'm a competitor. So I'm about to start getting up at 4:30, 5 o'clock. So I would get up at 4:30 in the morning because I had to beat Tim. So 4:30, I would get my meditation in, I would get my prayer in, started getting my workout in. And then as I started studying successful people, I started to understand the significance of getting up early, because a lot of people won't get up early. Mm-hmm. And if I want to separate myself, I have to be willing to do what other people aren't willing to do. And so I'm not saying that the only way you can be successful is if you're getting up early. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we have to be willing to study what successful people do. And if you're hearing constantly successful people talking about they get up early because they get an opportunity to learn, to study things before most people get up, then that gives you an advantage. So if I'm getting up 2 hours before everyone else, 2 hours times 7 days a week, that's 14 hours. That's 14 hours that I'm getting each and every week. That's more than anyone else. That's just 1 week. I'm getting 14 more hours. So that's what I do now. So now it's just it's ingrained in me. And so now in the morning time, so that was the most valuable thing that, amongst other things, but that was the most valuable thing that I took from Tim Selgo.
Tim knew my dad when
Yes.
Tim was in Toledo back in the day. And my dad was working at Ohio University as an associate AD. And when I met Tim for the first time, you know, I knew right away that when I had committed, I knew that I was in good hands as an athlete, because like you said, he was one of the best Division II athletic directors, you know, when he was running the show at Grand Valley State, because he was all about the student athlete. He was all about the programs, making sure everybody got what they need. He was on board with the coaches. If there were any issues, he was not afraid to call you out. And the toughest conversation I ever had, which, by the way, folks who listen to this on iTunes and Spotify won't be able to see this, but you will. I'm rocking my old
I see you. I see
sweatshirt
you
tonight for you, man.
I see you.
Come
on, 44.
And Mike Prisdale, my old teammate, you know, we were texting the other day, and he's been listening to the podcast. He goes, first thing he says to me, he goes, you know, you can't forget your Grand Valley State days. I said, I'm not. I said, I got that covered. I said, I got Doc coming on. But the toughest conversation I ever had with Tim was the day I had to walk into his office and ask for my release. That was the toughest out of everybody I had told that I was leaving. And you knew for a while, because I was in your office only so many days saying, I can't do this. I can't handle this. I can't handle that. I'm thinking about doing it. And when I told Tim that I was there to ask for my release, my heart kind of sank, because I love and respect that man so much. And that I think the day I committed, he kind of saw something in me, just kind of like you did. And when I said to him, Tim, I'm here to ask for my release, it broke my heart because I was leaving an incredible athletic program that did so many great things for the student athletes. And I was leaving an incredible athletic director behind who was all about the student athlete. I'm not saying Mark Hollis wasn't, because, I've known Mark Hollis, the former AD at Michigan State. I've known him since I was a kid. Mark and Tim are basically almost the same in my opinion. But just the relationship that I built with him, with Tim Selgo from day one, it was one of those relationships that I'll never forget. And I always tell, student athletes who are being recruited, what do I look, when they ask me, what should I look for when I commit to a school? And I always say, well, you want to go to a place that feels like home. That's what Grand Valley State was like for me. It was like home. But I also said you want to go to a place where you feel like you can trust your athletic director, you can trust your coaches, that they will have your back. And Tim was definitely one of those guys, and just everything he did for Grand Valley State and everything he did for me, I'm beyond thankful for that. So I kind of want to talk about our relationship for a little bit because, you talked about the conversation you had with my mom. Did you know at the time what autism was when my mom brought that up to you, or was it kind of new to you at that time?
It was new to me. Well, let me back up. It wasn't new to me, but I think it was new, just me having a relationship with a person who had autism. My wife, before we had met, she was doing, because she wanted to be a second grade teacher, and she was working with a young man who had autism. And so when we were dating, she would bring him by the house and different things like that. And so yes, I was definitely familiar, but I've never had a relationship to where I was working with a person with autism.
So how did you adapt differently when it came to our relationship? Like, what did you do differently that
I didn't do anything different. I didn't. And it's so funny because even today, like the conversation we're having, it's the same conversation that I had. And that's why I say you guys make it harder, because I had the same conversation, because it's all about, what did I say? Relationships.
Right.
So for me, it was, if I got you to understand that you could trust me by having a relationship with you, then you would trust that I had your best interests. So if I say, Anthony, take your butt over to the writing center, take your butt and get a tutor for whatever, you would trust me enough to say, dang, Doc has my best interest, let me go do this. And so I didn't treat you differently as it pertained to that, because I was like, you could do everything and you did everything that anyone else did. I think, to be transparent, the conversations that we had, that I felt that I had to make sure, is to make sure that, because coaches are different, right? And, I don't talk bad about any coach. I wanted to help you through that process of the bad experiences as well as the good experiences. But I think it goes back to what I said about my life, that everything that's happening to you is happening for you. And so making sure that you understood that regardless of your coach being on you or it's still about you. And you have to make decisions that are best for you. And everyone may not agree with the decisions that you make. But ultimately, as a man, as a woman, you have to make a decision based on what you feel you need to make. And so having those conversations with you. So I think that was the only difference, is making sure that you really knew that I was here for you.
And you definitely were, because like there were days where I struggled to the point where I couldn't control myself emotionally sometimes. And for somebody like myself, like, because I know like there are some folks out there that have watched me speak, at conferences or events or schools. And I've had some individuals walk up and say, well, I don't know how you have autism. I just don't see it. I don't recognize it. Because when I talk about outbursts I have, like they're thinking of a person with autism's outbursts as somebody who's low functioning and they just have random outbursts in the middle of the hallways at school. Whereas my outbursts were emotional. Yeah. They were just beyond, they were stress, anxiety, and just letting it all out. And I knew that if I was going to have one of those moments, I was not afraid to walk down to your office and knock on that door and say, Damon, I need 5 minutes. I need 5 minutes just to everything out right now. And you would just say, hey, close the door. Like, what's on your mind? I just pour my emotions out to you. And I think I can't remember the first time I did it, but that's like, after I just poured my emotions out to you, that's when I realized, okay, I can trust Doc. Doc's my guy. He's going to have my back. He told my parents from day one that anything you need, that your son needs, he can come to me. And like I said, like, you were one of the many reasons why I chose Grand Valley State. I chose Grand Valley State because it felt like home. I remember during freshman orientation, after I met with Dr. Ligi over at the Disability Center, shout out to her. I was walking back and I walked by the bell tower there, and it started ringing. It started playing the tune. And I said to myself, this is home. This feels like home. It just feels like it. Like, I feel like I could be a bigger, better person here and grow up a little bit, get out of East Lansing, get out of Okemos. And I just felt this sense of calmness and peace during my being by myself, walking around campus. And then obviously meeting you, obviously that was a big part of my decision, because I needed somebody who was going to have my back when it came to academics, or have my back personally. And you did, and you still do to this day. And I wanted to go someplace where, you know, I can grow up, like I said, and Grand Valley was one of them. And I don't think I've ever asked you this question, because I don't even think we've had the conversation. The day I told you that I was leaving, what was your reaction when I told you that I was leaving?
I'm gonna be transparent.
Mm-hmm.
I was happy for you. The part that was hard for me, or hard about the situation, is because I wanted you to be okay.
Yeah.
So it was hard because I knew you weren't okay. And I knew it was wearing on you. And so, just like my athletes who transfer from Grand Valley, period, I tell them, just like I just said a minute ago, I need you to be okay, because everyone else is going to be okay in their own way. But I need you to be okay, because my job as an educator, and I feel like educators' jobs, period, is to meet that student where they are. And it's not about, and it was a time where it was like, I would get frustrated with students who, I'm like, dude, there's no way you can fail out of Grand Valley unless you really try to fail out of Grand Valley, or fell out of wherever, Alabama, Michigan. There's no way unless you choose to, because all of those programs have resources. But what happens is we don't utilize the resources that are available. So for me, when you said it, I mean, I knew it was coming, but I was just because I'm such a people person, but I have to balance that. I have to balance it with not my emotions, because everybody has their journey. So when a person does fail out, I used to get frustrated. Now I don't, because and me and my mom talk about it all the time. And we were just talking about it the other day. I understand that everybody's journey is different.
Yep. I
got kicked out of 2 different high schools. Never once did I think I'd be this Dr. Damon Arnold guy, but it was a journey I had to go through. I don't know how my journey would have ended. I don't know how my journey would have been if my mom would have remained with my dad, right? I don't know if she would have stayed in Cleveland, how my journey would have been. So all of these different things were part of the journey. So for you, I was happy. I was happy for you, because I knew that the part of your journey that was weighing so heavy on you, it wasn't going to be good. And so I needed you to be around people who were going to give you the support that you needed.
Yeah. Yeah. And not like Grand Valley State didn't, because Grand Valley State gave me all the support in the world. And because I know, you know, a lot of folks think I just left Grand Valley State because I didn't get a lot of playing time. No, that was not the case. Like, there were other things that were into it. So, you know, and I talk about in my upcoming book, Centered, which is to be released September 7th. And Doc,
did you just give a plug for the book? Did you just say we're coming up on time? So let me drop the mic right there and give a plug for my book. Go ahead.
Absolutely. That's the first plug I've given for my book on my podcast. So, but it is one of the things I talk about in my book are, you know, the reasons why I left. And one of the reasons why I left was because, you know, I couldn't deal with the sarcasm piece when it came to the coaching staff as well. Whereas when I went to Michigan State, I went to a staff that knew me pretty well, but didn't know me as well, but they knew about me and they were able to adjust. And And when I was at Grand Valley State, when Burt Paddock was the assistant at the time, Burt was kind of that guy I leaned on to because Burt recruited me. He got to know me like a book. He had conversations with my mom, just like you did with my dad, and got to know me really well. And then when Burt left, that's when things kind of started trickling down the wrong way for me because I didn't have that person I can kind of lean on to when it came to the on the court stuff. Off the court, it was you, it was Prizzy, it was Alvin Stores, whoever that I can lean on to. But when I lost Burt, things just kind of were different after that. So, but the day I left, Damon, people don't know this. It was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. And it was even harder to tell the people that I make incredible relationships with, people that I still love to this day. It was tough for me to sit down with them and go, yeah, I'm leaving. Like, I'm transferring. Like, it was tough for me. And even Prizzy knew at the time. He kind of had an idea. For me to sit down with him in the cafeteria and go, yeah, I'm leaving, that was the tough part. Because that was my brother. That's my brother. And still is to this day. That's my guy. But to this day, I tell people all the time, out of the 5 years I had in college, the 2 years I had at Grand Valley State were the greatest years I had in college. Outside of basketball, it was the greatest 2 years I had in college. And that's why I always tell people I will always hold a special place in my heart for Grand Valley State because of the relationships that I made, because of the academics there, because of the people there. If my son ever gets recruited to go play basketball, football, baseball, or whatever, and Grand Valley State's on that list, I'm going to tell my kid, you need to look into them. Division II, Division III, I don't care, whatever it is, look into it because they are one of the best athletic programs in Division II in the entire country.
Yeah. It's so you talk about the people who you named. I've told people, because we've had students who transfer.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because my conversation has always been when I was part of the process and I meet the students, my job isn't to recruit a football player, a basketball player, a swimmer, a diver, golf. My job is to help recruit a student who has this talent to do this thing that will help add to that toolbox that I keep referring to that I understand that I have. And so when a student makes a decision to transfer or the student makes a decision to step away from that sport, it's funny because we have the conversation and I tell them, okay, well, still utilize this office, still call me, still email me because I want to make sure you're okay. Because my job isn't to recruit a basketball player because a basketball player is going to stop playing basketball one day. So if I don't see you for more than being a basketball, football, swimmer, golfer, diver, if I don't see you, then shame on me. Because the first thing I have to see you is as a man, as a woman, as a future father, as a future wife, as a future husband, it's all of these different things that I'm fortunate enough to participate in this journey that goes well beyond the sport. So it goes back to what I said. It's about the relationship. Many of my former student athletes have kids now. So if I was able to talk about some things that help me to become a better father, a better man, I'm hoping that I'm instilling those things into the people because I have a son who I want people to pour into him, people to pour in my daughter to help her be equipped with the tools that I'm trying to give other people kids that they can give to their kids that can help them be successful person on this planet. And if I'm not doing that, shame on me.
And you mentioned how, the advice, like I'm still going to you for advice. I remember over the summer I was dealing with a few things and I texted you.
Yeah.
And you got right back to me. And I still have that in my phone, by the way. Like I texted you and one of our family friends who's a priest. And I still have those two conversations that I had with you and him. And anytime I'm kind of down or just feeling like, negative about something, I'm always going back to those two conversations because my our family priest, who's Father Joe used to be the Michigan State football team priest at the time, and now he's up in the Flint area. He sent me a quote from the Bible that if I ever have a bad day, he said, just look at this and it'll help you feel better.
What's the scripture?
Let me go back and find it here. It is, and then whenever I'm done reading that, I always go back and look at our conversation. Mm-hmm. And it always brings me, right back into it. So it's actually, it's John 14 verses 1-6. Mm-hmm. And it is in the verse and it goes, you'll see a time when Jesus is directly addressing the disciples because it says they were troubled and afraid. He tells them that they don't need to be afraid because he goes ahead of them and prepares a place for them. A lot of the times people read that and think Jesus is talking about having, but he's actually using a word in Greek for those tents that they would set up when people cross the desert. I minimized it for whatever reason. They were little camps wherever there was water, so that when you were crossing the desert, you didn't go straight to where you wanted to go, follow the zigzag lines, and arrived at the places where you could get water and shade. Jesus promised it is not just that he goes ahead of us to heaven, but then he goes ahead of us every day and every moment and offers us places where we can find spiritual and emotional water and shade. I think of you and then he says to me, and then it says, I think for you, a cool thing would be to ask Jesus to help you see him and feel him as you cross the desert. He doesn't need you to succeed at being a father. No human could do that. He wants you to be faithful as a father. That means your child gets your best. And I know your brother, your child does. He does track human success. He says, because of who I am. So I look at that conversation all the time, and then I circle right back to you. And before I get to my last question for you, Doc, and then we're really gonna have some fun here because I got some rapid fire questions that are silly, serious, and then I'm gonna give you the floor because what I do with every guest I have on is I give my guests a chance to give our listeners a positive message for the week. So, but my last question for you is, when did the door open for you to become a successful motivational speaker and entrepreneur? When did that door open up for you?
I remember at Washington State, I told you I was in inclusion and equity, diversity office.
Yep.
And the center because we had all these different ethnic centers. So we had Chicano Latino Center, Asian Pacific Islander, Native American, then African American Student Center. And I remember during the summer months, because people would take a tour or whatnot, and I got cool with everyone I come in contact with. So admissions would bring them over to the African American Student Center. So they would bring them over, and I remember this one young lady, white young lady, and I would always say, this center is inclusive. It's for everyone because the world doesn't just have one race. It has all of these different races in it. So utilize this. Come visit. And this one young lady took me up on it when the semester started. So she comes in the center and she said, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I was like, yeah, I do remember you. How you doing? And so all the Black women in the center, like, who this girl? Like what's she doing in the center, right? Who this white girl coming to the center? And so I introduced her and I said, hey, and I said, what's interesting about this young lady is she said she was going to come to the center. And so I know y'all giving her the side eye, but she tough because she didn't brought her butt in here. And so she introduced, and everybody started laughing because I kind of broke the little looks or whatnot, right? And so she would come by all the time, right? So she became family. Everybody's like, hey, girl, I forget her name, but hey, girl, da, 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 da. And so she had stopped coming by for like a few months, right? And she came back with this boy. And everybody's like, we just wondering where you were, and who this boy? Why is he here? Like, we don't know him. We ain't even had a chance to meet. But she had become so much of the family. And I'm watching this dynamic of all these girls who at one time, they're looking at her like wondering why she in the center, like she shouldn't be there. But now they're looking at her like she's family. And it was that where I was like, man, I have this ability to make people understand that the most important being on this planet is the human being. I have this ability through these experiences that I've been fortunate to have, because it never happened to me, it happened for me, to understand that if I'm transparent, I can get little young men, young women to understand that, hey, I don't gotta be great at everything in school. I gotta get help, but I can do this school stuff. I can get them to understand that education is important. And whether you go to a 2-year or a 4-year or go get a certificate or go get a trade, it's about education. And so I have this ability through my experiences and being transparent and being this handsome Black guy. I have these talents that the world needs to hear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a piece of a puzzle that is missing if I don't use my talents that I've been provided with. And so the door opened when I used my key to unlock the door, to be courageous enough and bold enough to talk about my experiences, the good, the bad, what people think is ugly, to understand that it was never good, it was never bad. It was only the meaning that I gave to it. And the meaning that I give to it is it never happened to me, it always happened for me. So it was never ugly, it was actually beautiful.
I love it, Doc. I love it, man. You ready to have some fun?
Come on, man. My life is fun.
All right. So every episode for my guests, I ask 10 rapid fire questions. And like I said earlier, they are goofy, they are funny, some are serious. So question number 1 is the traditional question we always ask everybody: strawberry or grape jelly?
I can't stand you. Are you freaking... We was just at Sam's Club. My wife just bought 2. She seen them and she bought 2 strawberry, because Sam's Club, you get a bulk, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so she bought strawberry, and I told her, I said, she said, I know you don't eat this. I haven't told you, but I've been vegetarian since January, right?
Really?
So been vegetarian since January, and my taste buds have changed. Like, I haven't had... Jelly used to be my thing. That used to be my jam, I guess. No pun intended. Jelly used to be my jam. But it used to be grape jelly. I told her I'm going to try the strawberry because I think my taste buds have changed. But I can't even imagine having grape jelly right now. It would seem too sweet. But grape jelly, if I had to choose between, grape jelly.
You are the first guest to say grape jelly. You are the first. So
there we go. There we go. There we
Question number 2, and you may not have a dog in this fight, but that's why these questions are fun. Michigan State or Ohio State?
Dude, where am I from?
That's why I asked.
So I'm not even, to be honest with you, I go for Ohio State because my son is such a diehard Ohio State, because he's the most bandwagon person in the world, right? And he rocks Cleveland, Ohio, even though he ain't from Cleveland, but all his family still lives in Cleveland.
Right.
So I would say Ohio State, but to be honest with you, I like athletes, man. I like athletes. For me, I just love young men, young women doing something. And so I rock with both of them. But if I had to choose one, Ohio State.
All right, that's fair enough. Fair enough. Question number 3, who is your favorite superhero and why?
Black Panther.
I love it. Me and my kids, we were actually watching Black Panther last night on TNT. And I'm addicted, man. Anytime it's on, like I'm in. I'm locked in. My
kid. Go ahead.
I was gonna say my youngest, who's 3, he thinks it's Batman. I'm like, no, it's not Batman. It's Black Panther. Yeah. So he would come on, Black Panther come on TV. Batman. I'm like, oh, geez. So I really gotta separate you from DC and Marvel.
It's funny because it used to be Superman. I used to rock with Superman so much, and I'm a big Superman fan. But ever since Chadwick passed away, and I was watching it before, like my kids, they're like, how can you watch this again? Like if it's on, I'm watching it. I'm watching some of it. And they're like, how can you watch this again? And then just knowing his story and just knowing, that he was going through all of this without telling a whole lot of people, only his immediate circle knew, and the strength that he had So it even made me more of a Black Panther fan. And it was just dope, man. It was Black Panther was a dope movie, man.
It was. It's definitely in, my top 5 favorite movies of all time. Question 4, between fresh food, and for those of you listening, these are places to eat on Grand Valley State's campus. Between fresh food, Kleiner, and Kirchhoff, which is your favorite place to eat on Grand Valley's campus and why?
Man, okay. So it used to be fresh, even though y'all used to complain about fresh.
Whoa,
y'all used to say,
I didn't complain.
Y'all used to say,
once.
y'all used to say fresh gave y'all the bubble guts.
No.
I'm just saying.
Hey, the only thing I ever complained about with fresh was when they didn't serve enough fish and chips for dinner every month. That's the only thing I complained about. I was addicted with their fish and hush puppies. That's the only thing I complained about with fresh.
I used to love fresh, and it's so funny because I remember Robert Carlisle. He got me into waffles, so making the waffles over there. But man, we have a Qdoba, and I'm big on Qdoba because Qdoba has Beyond Meat. And so they have Beyond Meat burrito. And so, I'm sorry, Impossible Meat. So Impossible Meat burrito, fire. So I'm not a big on Panda. We got Panda on campus too. I'm not big on Panda, but yeah, I rock with fresh, but I think I'll go Qdoba.
That's another reason why I love Grand Valley so much, was because Kirchhoff, late nights at Kleiner, and fresh food, man. Those were the places to be. They were the places to be when it came to meals. Question number 5, best motivational speaker not named Anthony Ianni.
That's a tough one because that's who I would have said. Goodness. I really can't answer this one because it would be blasphemous to say anyone else.
You're making me blush, Doc. You're making me blush.
I'm just saying. I'm a big, who I like? I like a lot of speakers. Tony Robbins, man. Tony Robbins is, I think when you talk about study success and studying the blueprint, but all of them, man. E.T. gets down, man. E.T. gets down. Jim Rome, it's a bunch of them. But if I had to rock with someone, I would say Tony Robbins, just because I could be a fly on the wall and just learn just his whole blueprint and just his system of how he does it, and because he's good, but he's a student.
He was actually one of the first guys that I started studying off of before I got my speaking career started. I looked at him, I looked at E.T., and this may actually be funny, but when it came to the raw emotion and the goofiness of my presentations, I watched The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. I would go back and watch all his promos from WWE and watch his acting and his interviews, just kind of how he is as a person. So, but Tony Robbins was definitely number 1 on my list when it came to studying speakers.
Yeah, so Tony Robbins, but the dopest speaker is that dude, Dr. D.F. Arnold. But go ahead.
I mean, he's all right, man. I'm not going to complain. I'm
just saying. The Jay-Z of motivation. Go ahead.
Hey, I like that, Doc. I love that. Question 6, favorite city or conference you've spoken at?
Ooh, goodness. Come on, man.
What?
You know what? And I've said this. I think my favorite one was Utah. Not and I'm not trying to, cities are great. So, but speaking for PBS, because I remember I was a keynote, and I remember the organization that brought me in, right? And so you had PBS, you had everybody there. And so I remember during the presentation, I remember having to get a shout out to Barney. I love you, you love, and to incorporate that into, I think that was so dope, and everybody just really enjoyed that. So I would say, speaking for PBS, because a lot of that, Barney, Mr. Rogers, the legacy of it. Yes, that's it, the legacy of it, man. So I would say that was a pretty dope conference. But I've had the opportunity to speak at dope conferences, man, with the NFL and all of that. So, but I would say PBS probably was my favorite, just for the history of it.
That's pretty big time, Doc. Question 7, your dream vacation.
So can I give you two? So
Sure.
me and my wife a few years ago went on vacation to Atlantis, and we didn't take the kids. And my wife got mad at me like 2 days into it because we were doing all the different slides, the water parks and everything. And I kept talking about how the kids are gonna love this, the sharks and all they're gonna love. And she was like, babe, this is our vacation. So when I came back, I said, man, I can't wait to take y'all. And so my daughter's looking it up on, and she can't wait to go. And then the pandemic hit. So I can't wait to go back to Atlantis with the whole family. But I want to do Tahiti and the
Okay.
little huts that you could stay in
Yeah,
over
yeah.
over the water. Man, I can't. But so I would say Tahiti. But what I'm looking forward to is speaking in Dubai. I'm going to speak in Dubai. I don't know what organization is going to bring me up there, but I can't wait to get to Dubai.
Man, you're international, man. Look at you.
So little joke. I used to think, man, so I want to be the best number one speaker in the country. Then I said, you know what? Nah, I want to be the best motivational speaker in the world. And then I said, no, but you know what? I want to be the best international speaker in the galaxy because I want to be on Mars going, and the Martians going. I'm speaking of Martians, Anthony. Speaking of Martians, shoot, E.T. and Tony Robbins, they can have, the countries. I'm in the galaxy, baby.
Oh man, that's awesome, Doc. That's awesome, man. Go big or go home, right?
Come on, man. Stop playing with me. Elon, let me get SpaceX. Let me get SpaceX and get,
Question number 8. If you could be any animal, what would it be and why?
Oh man, a lion. Right off the bat.
I figured.
Man. I know it's kind of generic. Everyone says it, but I'm a Leo. And my wife always watching animals, right? And just the lion just so cold. And it's not that it's the toughest animal, because it's other animals that are stronger than it. But it has this confidence about it, this bravo about it, to where it's people are afraid of it, man.
Yeah.
And so I don't want people to be afraid of me, but I want people, when they see me, to say, man, there's something different about him.
Mm-hmm. Question number 9, and you're probably going to roll your eyes at me when I ask you this. Will the Cleveland Browns win a Super Bowl before the Detroit Lions?
Man, my mother is a diehard. When I shout out Denise Louise Menifee, she is a diehard Cleveland Browns fan. So much so, when we lived in California, she went to a Raiders game and sat in the black hole with Cleveland Brown stuff on.
Oh no.
I can't make this up, to where they're like, you are a crazy woman. And they just gave her respect. So I would be killed by my mother if I didn't say the Cleveland Browns will win one before the line. Plus, man, Cleveland's spending money, man. Cleveland was balling last year, and they spending money to build a team, man. They got that taste of LeBron being there and understand what it did to the economy of Cleveland, and they like, man, we like that. So they spending money for the Brownies.
I like what they're doing. Once they got the right people in the front office, things are kind of taking off from there. And that's kind of like what I'm seeing with the Lions right now, is that I feel like they got the right folks in there that know what they're doing, and they're trying to do it right.
Are we on Zoom? Did I just yawn when you just said that? Sorry.
Oh, you're good, man. You're good.
Sorry, when you talked about the Lions. Sorry.
Hey, that's actually a good way to put it when it comes to the Lions, man. It's all good.
I'm just saying, man. Y'all say this every year at the beginning of the season, 2 games in, we're going to Super Bowl. Then all of a sudden it's back.
I don't, because I know what's going to happen. It's
okay.
Written in the script of what's going to happen every year.
There you go.
And last but not least, question number 10: who do you admire the most?
That woman I just said, man, Denise Louise Menifee, because she did so much. I wouldn't be the man I am today if she wasn't the woman who she is, the mother who she is. To be able to raise a young man without being a man, cross the different bridge to womanhood, not to manhood, but let me go out and experience what I needed to experience, but loving on me. Tough love, but loving on me, man, and believing in me. She, irregardless of everything I went through, she always believed in me. So that person right there, man, my mom, man, I admire her the most out of anyone besides Jesus.
I love it, Doc. I love it. All right. I do this every week with my guests. I'm going to do it to you. I want you to give us, I'm going to rename this segment for this episode only. I tell my guests, the positive message of the week for the listeners, but I'm going to rename this session just for this episode. Take us to Aim High University and give us Doc's success code for the week. All you, sir.
Doc's success code for the week. Never stop doing something because someone said you can't. Keep doing it because you know you can. You just have to believe you can. And once you believe you can, get around people who have done it or people who are doing it. Stop being around people who are telling you what they can't do or what you can't do, because the only people who don't believe they can do something are people who never did it. But if you hang around people who are doing it, people who are striving, they'll always tell you you can do it because they did it.
Dropping the mic on my show. And and I wouldn't have it any other way. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the great, the legendary, soon to be greatest motivational speaker in the entire galaxy.
Galaxy, baby.
My friend and mentor, Dr. Damon Arnold. Doc, I love you. As always, you know I got your back. And I can't thank you enough, sir, for everything you've done for me, everything you continue to do for me, support me. You have no idea how much it means to me. And I know, speaking from my parents, it means a great deal to them as well. And, I love you for that. And thank you for being on. And thank you for being such an incredible friend, sir.
Man, thank you for having me. Thank you for being patient with me as well, because I know we've been trying to get dates together to get this done. And I know I've been crazy with my schedule. So thank you for thinking of me. Tell your parents I said, hey, tell sis I said, hey, kiss those two boys, the wife. Oh, goodness, I can't believe you got kids. You're making me so old. Old. But
like I mentioned, my 6-year-old's already shooting on a 10-foot rim, man. I mean,
goodness. But thank you once again. And I'm honored that you would have me on your wonderful podcast, and much success to you, sir.
Thank you, Doc. I cannot thank Dr. Damon Arnold for coming on today. It's anytime I get a chance to sit down with Doc and just kind of pick his brain on things, and just have a conversation with him, I always enjoy it. I really do. And, I've always told people that Grand Valley State will always have a place in my heart. I will always hold it near and dear to my heart because of the relationships and the people that I met there. And Dr. Arnold's the reason why, I still have a lot of love for Grand Valley State to this day because of his support and, more importantly, his friendship for me during the 2 years I had and currently in my career. So I can't thank Doc enough. Nothing but love. That's my guy. That's my guy for life. And he basically just dropped the mic on me on my own show. But, again, that, for me, I expected that because, like I said, Doc is one of the greats. But for my positive message of the week, I'm going to take a little bit of what Doc taught me, and we talked about it multiple times. And, in life, we always got to figure out ways to get to where we want to go in life. How are we going to get there? How are we going to succeed? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? Yada, yada, yada. But the one thing that I was taught day one at Grand Valley State, and we talked about it multiple times, utilize your resources, because every single resource that is offered you or given to you in life, you utilize those resources in life, you will be great at what you do in life. So for any high school or college student or graduate student that is listening to this right now, that's my message to you. Utilize your resources, because if you utilize every single resource at your university or school that is offered you or given to you, I promise and I guarantee it that you will graduate and get your degree in 4 to 5 years at a public university. You will get your master's degree in 2 years. You will get your doctorate degree, your PhD degree in 2 years because of all the resources that you utilize to get there. If you're out of college, it's the same deal. Utilize your resources, Because if you utilize every single resource that is offered you or given to you at your job to help you be successful and great at what you do, I promise and I guarantee you that you will be great at what you do in your life. And that's the one thing that Dr. Arnold taught me. And I still do that to this day. I still take those words to heart. So if there's ever a time at work that I need a resource to help me be successful with my anti-bullying initiative, the Relentless Tour, if it's offered to me, I'm taking it. If it's going to be given to me, I'm taking it. And then I'm going to run with it. Because if I want to be great at what I want to do in life, like Doc, I'm trying to be great. Like Doc, I want to be the greatest motivational speaker in the country. Like Doc, I want to be the greatest international motivational speaker in the country. Greatest international motivational speaker. I want to be the greatest. The greatest in the galaxy? If Doc beats me to that, he deserves it. But he's setting that path of how to get there. And it was because of the resources that he uses. He talks about every single tool that's offered to you, put it in your toolbox so you have it. So everybody listening, we all got dreams and goals in life, but how are we going to get there? How? Simple. By utilizing every single resource that's offered you or given to you in life. I guarantee it to anybody listening. You utilize those resources offered or given you in life, you will be pretty damn great at what you do in your life. Thank you guys so much for listening. Have an incredible week. We will see you on our next episode when we welcome the great Brandon Dawson, former Michigan State basketball player. Looking forward to talking to BJ. It's been a minute since I talked to him and seen him. Super excited for that. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have an incredible week. Peace and love, everybody.
Anytime you're shortcutting it, you're probably cheating some people. Players play. Tough players win.